that trophy, sparkling, absolutely sparkling under all of like the lights. They were carrying it out on the ice with like 3 people holding it. It's not even that big. They were just really worried about dropping it. Crazy. Absolutely wild. Hello, and happy Friday. Welcome to Sarah Says So. I'm Sarah Barber, your host. This is the inaugural episode 0. So this is going to be a show kind of bringing you the latest news in women's sports, and I'm pretty much just going to tell you exactly how it is. So be sure to follow the show on socials. It's going to be at Sarah Says So ETB on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And then you can make sure to subscribe as well to ETB Network on YouTube. So basically, before we get into the actual content and some good women's sports stuff just overall, I thought it might be a great idea to start with who the hell I am and why you're listening to me. So we'll do that. Then we'll talk a little bit about what you can expect from the show moving forward. And then we're going to get into some WNBA, PWHL, and NWSL news. So just starting off, a little bit about me, who the hell I am, why the hell you're listening to me. We're going to take it way, way back to, I want to say, 2006. So I was about 4. It's one of my earliest memories playing on a co-ed t-ball team. I don't remember specifically the context. I think we were all just like playing catch. But this boy on my team like came up to me and just told me that I threw like a girl, and I, reacting as any small 4-year-old girl would, cry to my mom. You know, kind of makes sense. But that has always really stuck with me. I like to tell that story just because it kind of has always made me laugh. But I've always kind of thought about that as I've gotten older and been like, so I guess that was my first brush with sexism. So that's great at a ripe 4 years old. That's awesome. But it's been something that's really stuck with me and kind of been part of my drive as I've embarked on a career in the sports media world as a sports journalist. So I just kind of wanted to start off with that because I took that, having that kid tell me that I threw like a girl, and now he likes, the best way to describe this actually is this kid told me I threw like a girl, and then about 2-ish months ago when I went and covered the Super Bowl, he slid into my Instagram DMs. So that can kind of give you just a little bit of a gauge as to how his life is going. But in terms of what I'm about, there's going to be a lot of colorful language, I would say. So if you have children, I'm sorry, but I'm not censoring myself for them. Love them though. They are the future. Lots of sarcasm, just all that good stuff. You're probably just going to be in for a wild ride, but I will do my best to keep it both fun and informative. In terms of like why I actually have the credentials to be speaking, because I will be the first to say that there are way too many men going out and buying podcast equipment that is readily available to them. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. I have a degree in journalism and English from Northeastern University. I started sports writing when I was in high school. So I've been doing this and just really eating and breathing sports news for probably the last 5-6 years. So yeah, that's definitely been a fun journey, especially like throughout college and stuff. But right now I'm in grad school at Northwestern, getting my master's in journalism with a specialization in sports media. So definitely have pretty strong background on the journalism side of things. So as much as I do plan to goof around on this show and tell it to you straight, I also want you to know that all the information is going to come from some very sound reporting. And God forbid, should I make an error, but I mean, we're all human, but should I make an error, I will make sure to correct that as well. Also, despite that that journalism experience that I just referenced. This is the first time I've ever embarked on a podcast sort of situation or anything, like not even in a class in college or anything like that. So we're all along for the ride together, but I'm sure it'll be great. And I tried to put myself in the best possible situation in terms of prep. And so I hope you enjoy it. I think that this will be a fun ride. And, episode 1, it can really only go up from here. So that'll be great. So before we get into some of the news for this week, I'm just going to talk a bit about what you can kind of expect from the show in terms of content and the why. In terms of content, I'm planning on starting everything with today's lineup. And so that'll kind of just be like an overview, a little outline. That way, if you're like running late or something and you want to listen to one specific part, you can kind of do your best to figure out where in the show that would be. But I'm not doing timestamps. That's a lot. So today's lineup, we'll go over everything. It's going to be largely news-based, whatever I want, really. But what's really important and what I really want to emphasize a lot, especially in this first episode, is the why behind the show. I'm marketing it as a women's sports show, but what I really, really want is to create a space for that as well as to tell untold stories. I think something that we forget or like kind of tend to ignore is how recently a lot of change in terms of equality has been made. I mean, if you think about Title IX in and of itself, that was created in 1972, the year my dad was born. It's really pretty young. And I mean, one of the things, whenever I talk about kind of just like gender equality overall, I think about the famous picture from the Boston Marathon when Kate Switzer was running and you have like the Boston police trying to pull her out because women weren't allowed to participate in the marathon at that time. And a lot of the times when you see that picture, it's in black and white. And it's similar to what what like textbooks and things do with like civil rights pictures. They put them in black and white almost so you think that it happened further in the past than it actually did. And especially now, especially in this country under this administration, these stories of equality and stories celebrating success in marginalized communities are needed so much more. They're needed all the time, but especially now. And I think especially for a show about women's sports, it's impossible to do it justice without also discussing the different things that female athletes have to deal with, but also the intersectionality that comes into play and acknowledging the role that race has historically played in sports. I mean, one of the things that has stuck out to me most in recent references, it's from 2019, but Paige Becker's SP speech, where she highlighted that coverage needs to focus more on Black women, Black female athletes, because they weren't getting equal coverage, which still continues to be true. And I mean, you can see kind of a different side of the same coin, so to speak, when you think about the reactions to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese when they were in their last year of the NCAA, and as well as last year, their first year in the WNBA, but just the way that the media and fans kind of pit them against each other, and they portray both women very, very differently. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is still going to be a sports show. I'm not going to sit and just kind of lecture to you every week, but sometimes I am going to, because I think that there are a lot of stories that aren't talked about enough. And one of the biggest things that I want to do with this platform is tell those stories with intention and really shed light on athletes who maybe don't get the coverage or the recognition that they deserve for whatever reason. So while I'm not going to sit here and lecture you every week. I'm going to touch on the social issues. I mean, right now, transgender athletes are really, really under attack in this country. And as that's something that I follow very closely in the news, and as things develop, I'm definitely going to share them with you because I think it's important that we're all aware of the reality behind these issues and the truth and the facts behind why laws and executive orders are being passed. And I just think that it's important to continue to speak about these things, especially in the face of politicians and government that might not want that to happen. All right, so now that some of the more housekeeping stuff is out of the way, we're going to get right into it. The WNBA season starts tonight. I'm sure everyone is thrilled. If you're watching this up on the screen right now, we have just a graphic with the games for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But if you're just tuning in your headphones, I'm going to read them off for you as well. These are all in Central Time because it's up to me and I'm in Central Time and I don't want to confuse myself. So Friday, we are kicking it off with 2 games at 6:30. The Dream are playing the Mystics in Washington, D.C., and then the Lynx are playing the Wings in Dallas. And then later that night, after those 2 wrap up, at 9, we have the Sparks at the Valkyries. So that'll actually be really exciting. It'll be their first official game in the league. And then Saturday, we've got the Aces at the Liberty at 12, the Sky at the Fever at 2, Storm at Mercury at 9 p.m. And then on Sunday, we've got 2 games. The Mystics play the Sun at 12, and then the Lynx play the Sparks at 5 p.m. So, I mean, if you plan your day right and your weekend right, you could, in theory, spend the entire weekend just watching the WNBA, which isn't too shabby. Like I can't lie. I feel like I've got a couple friends that will probably end up doing that as their weekend plans. So make sure you tune into those games, put them on your calendar. If any of your teams are playing this weekend, you can make sure to tune in because we have to make sure to actually watch. Like, one of the biggest things that I always try to tell people, like, if you have the time and if you have the money, depending on like how you have to subscribe, like if you have the time and the means and the interest, like you need to be watching these games and you need to be watching these sports because as much as it annoys me. People are probably going to get annoyed that I'm saying that, but it annoys me that there is so much of like a ratings game. And so, I mean, when you're kind of like thinking in the headspace that I am, where you're thinking about growing leagues, you got to watch the freaking games because you got to get the ratings. So if you're not planning on watching any of these games, I think you should pick at least 1 or 4 and watch them this weekend. So that's your homework, actually, as a listener of this show. But yeah, so those are the games this weekend. But as I mentioned, the Valkyries are going to be playing their first game in the league. So I'm actually really excited for this. They're the first expansion team since the Dream in 2008. So it'll be really, really interesting to kind of see how they perform throughout the season, but also just kind of see what the reaction is in terms of like, we had the expansion draft. They got some really good people. And then obviously they did pretty well in the 2025 draft as well. But I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of what they do with all of the pieces that they have. I'm really excited about their head coach, Natalie Nakase. She's the first Asian American head coach in the W. And when I was doing some prep for the show, I was just reading some more about her and her player bio, because she, when she was in college, she played for UCLA. The first line of her player bio literally it says something about like her best game or something, and then it's literally quote, is like a coach on the floor. And I saw that and I was like, that is sick. And I ended up watching just a couple interviews that people have done with her. And she just is super cool. She has a really cool personality. And so I'm really excited to kind of see, like, get to see more of her in the league, but also just see what she does with her team and what she does with this new role. I think that'll be I think that'll definitely, at least for me, probably be one of the things I'm watching the closest this season. Especially, I mean, Natalie is going to be fantastic, but also I wanted to highlight the Valkyrie GM, Ohema Nayanen. I listened to how to pronounce that like 100 times, and I'm still not 100% sure if that's right. But she is Ghanaian American, and she was an unrecruited first-year walk-on at American, and I have just done so, like, I've spent so much time reading about her dedication to building the program out at Golden State. Just last week, I guess, May 9th, whenever that was, she was named to the San Francisco Business Times Most Influential Women in Bay Area Business list. And I just think it's so important, especially for this new team that has a lot of support from Golden State Warriors. They're going to have a good amount of resources to be led by two women of color. I think that that's really, really powerful, especially with Natalie being the first Asian American head coach in the league. I just really, I mean, I want all of the teams to do well, but I think specifically with all of the pieces in this particular situation, I think there's a part of me that hopes that they do kind of just blow the other teams out of the water, because I think that we need to see more women of color winning just in general. And I think as much as I'm excited for the Valkyries as a whole, I think the most exciting kind of component to that potential success, at least for me, is going to be Caitlin Chen. They, of their 2025 draft picks, the only one they still have and ended up signing is Caitlin Chen. Their first round pick is missing this season. Yusta Yotite. She is from, I believe, where is she from? I want to say Lithuania. I could be making that up. But she's not going to be making her debut at all. Yeah, Lithuanian. She chose to so she basically just chose to focus on European basketball, like female European basketball in Lithuania, and she's going to start playing with the Valkyries next season. So that'll be kind of an interesting situation to kind of watch play out, I guess, so to speak. I mean, she won't be there this season, but it'll be interesting to kind of remember next season as they get new people. It'll be like, oh, right, she's coming back. I guess. I don't know. I feel like that it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. And then their second round pick, Cheyenne Sellers, they waived her and she got picked up by the Atlanta Dream, but then she was waived again. And so her status in the league right now is kind of just a question mark. But round 3, pick 29, Miss Caitlin Chen. She's the first Taiwanese American player to be drafted in the league, and she's just an absolute force. I first started paying close attention to her because one of my good friends went to Princeton undergrad and was a big fan of their women's basketball team. And when Caitlin transferred to UConn for grad year, we would just watch the UConn games because obviously who's not watching UConn women's basketball? But we were paying a lot of attention to Caitlin, and I'm really excited to see what she does. I've read a lot about like the way that Coach Nakase plans to like run the team in terms of like pacing and speed and all that. And it seems to really, really align well with the type of player that Caitlin Chen is. And I think it's also like just kind of a cool bonus to have the first Taiwanese American player in the league and the first Asian American head coach in the same organization. And especially for Caitlin, like, she kind of has almost an open door to be a really, really strong player for them in her rookie season and potentially have a really good impact. And so I'm really excited to kind of see what happens with her specifically, but also how the team is structured overall. I mean, in the expansion draft, they also got Kate Martin, Stephanie Talbot, and Kayla Thornton. So they have a good amount of strong puzzle pieces to kind of build their offense and build their defense as they move throughout the season. Just in terms of the big thing that I'm really thinking about is the start of the Valkyrie, just the start of their experience in the league and how they're really going to come out as a team and as an organization and what that's going to look like. But there's absolutely no way to talk about the beginning of the WNBA tonight without pointing out the very, very obvious excitement that will be the freshmen that are coming into the league, especially Paige Bueckers. I mean, I almost listed off a couple other names and wasn't going to say hers just to screw with people, but then I was like, there's no point. But her, Bueckers, Kiki Ariaffin, Georgia Amore, Anissa Monroe, Haley Van Lith, all five of them, they're really kind of my 5 key freshmen to watch as this season unfolds. I think it's going to be really interesting to see Kiki and Georgia on the same team and in the same organization. And I mean, there's been obviously so much discussion about Paige and being in Dallas. And I mean, I just think it's sick now that Dallas has is the first organization and team to have both first draft picks for the NBA and the WNBA in a season. But I mean, Dallas it's an interesting organization. It'll be interesting to see what she does there. But I feel like it kind of could look similar to how when Caitlin Clark came up to the Fever last year, it feels to me almost like a big fish in a small pond type of situation. So it'll be interesting to see kind of I'm sure she'll perform well on the court, but it'll be really interesting to see kind of how her personality shines isn't really the right word, but just kind of what she as a person brings to Dallas, because she's also such a strong not only team player but teammate, and she really brings a strong culture to the teams that she's on. And so I think that'll be really interesting. I feel like Dallas is, at least for me, one of those teams that kind of fades into the background that I don't really think about a ton. But now I'm going to be thinking about them a lot because of Paige. But yeah, the freshmen, I'm really interested to see what they're going to, I also just keep calling them the freshmen because I think it's funny, but those 5 rookies, I'm really excited to see what they do specifically, just because they had such strong careers before. But I'm also just looking forward to being surprised by maybe someone that I'm not expecting. I'm not even going to take a guess as to who it is. I'm just going to wait and be surprised, and you'll have to wait for that update whenever it comes. But also, other than the freshmen, I went from freshman to sophomore. The sophomore seasons of Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Camila Cardoso, and Cameron Brink will be really interesting to see. I know with Brink, she's still recovering from that ACL injury. The last thing that I saw, I think on Twitter, was that or maybe it was an actual article, I hope so, was that she was back to practicing and everything, but they weren't sure specifically when she would return to gameplay. So I don't know. I've got decent hopes that she'll play a good portion of the season, I hope. But also I have no medical knowledge, so that could be a shot in the dark. So yeah, aside from Brink, I mean, Caitlin Clark, I'm sure, will just continue to dominate. She's cool. There's not really, I don't know. I feel like I'm the first to say that she deserves absolutely the hype. She is a fantastic player. But I also don't want to sit here with a microphone and be another person that just like hypes up Caitlin Clark, because while she is phenomenal, there are also other really, really great players in the league. And so I'm excited to see what Angel Reese does with her sophomore season. I'm excited to see kind of what changes they've made within the Sky. I'm also biased because I'm planning on going to a couple Sky games, hopefully, since I am in the city here. But I think Angel is someone I watch a lot as not only an athlete, but also a person, because she has had to take a lot of not response, but like criticism and opinions, I guess, of the media and fans that she doesn't deserve to get all of the hate, like, at all. And so much of it is so rooted in racism that I just really, really hope that she can have a really, really strong second season. And like, not to be like parasocial with Angel Reese, but like from the outside looking in, it seems like she's not that she needed to mature, but it seems like she's better equipped, I guess, to handle the haters, so to speak. I don't know, that sounds stupid, but like that is what I mean. Like, she seems like she is more prepared to kind of handle the different things that this level of like fame and notoriety kind of throws at her, whether she necessarily wants that or not. And so I'm really hopeful that she'll have a good season athletically, but also just like emotionally. And I really, really hope that the like Angel Reese Caitlin Clark beef doesn't, like, it just always gets so blown out of proportion, and it really pisses me off, and I don't want to deal with it. So praying that doesn't happen. But before we transition to the PWHL, we're going to take a quick break for a note from our friends at Playback. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together, with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. So hopefully by now I have hyped you all up to go watch some WNBA games tonight. But we are going to transition over to the PWHL. So in case you're not familiar with how the PWHL playoffs work, it's a 6-team league, and so 4 of those 6 teams make the playoffs. Unfortunately for me, I'm a huge Boston Fleet fan. Boston and New York were the 2 teams that did not make that cutoff for the playoffs this season. Sucks extra for Boston because we played in the championship last year, but I digress. In terms of the playoffs, it's a semifinal and just a semifinal round and then a final round, because there's only 4 teams, but both of those series are best of 5, and they're all playing every league obviously has their trophy, but my favorite thing about the PWHL trophy is that it was designed by Tiffany & Co. So like every nice ridiculously expensive jewelry bullshit, that type of thing, the trophy's freaking gorgeous. I was actually at the final game of the championship series last year, up in Lowell, Massachusetts, between Boston and Minnesota. Boston lost. I don't want to talk about it, but that trophy, sparkling, absolutely sparkling under all of the lights. They were carrying it out on the ice with 3 people holding it. It's not even that big. They were just really worried about dropping it. Crazy, absolutely wild. These teams are actually currently on the journey to the Walter Cup. So we have semifinal 1, which is Montreal and Ottawa. So as of now, the Charge lead 2-1. They're going to play again tonight. So that game is going to be at 6 Central. Again, you can do the math to figure out what time zone it is for you. But that'll be super interesting. I'm really looking forward to that game specifically, because game 3 was really good. They had the Charge, specifically Ottawa, had a really, really good performance from goaltender Gwyneth Phillips. And I always love to shout her out because we are alums of the same school. But she just played absolutely out of her mind. It's her first year in the league, and she's really stepped up a lot when they've needed her, but she also stepped up for Team USA in the Women's Ice Hockey National Championship when the starting goaltender, Erin Frankel, was injured. Gwen went in and really kept the US in it, and they ended up going on to win. So I'm really excited to kind of watch her throughout the semifinals, especially just because, I don't know, I really just can't help but root against the Frost because the last game of the regular season, they kicked the absolute crap out of Boston. I mean, they're all so incredibly talented that it's fair, but God, it's just, it hurts my soul to root for them sometimes. But Minnesota versus Toronto is semifinal 2. The Frost are leading 2-1. They're actually, that's like technically probably inaccurate by now because they're going to play tonight, but I'm recording this Wednesday afternoon. So when you're listening, it'll either be done and the Frost will have won and advanced to the final, or it'll be a tied series 2-2 going to game 5 should Toronto pull out a win. I don't know. I always love a 5-game series, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Frost just won that 3rd game. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens there, but I'm definitely looking forward more to the Montreal-Ottawa game. But should Toronto win, then the Frost and the Scepters will play that game 6 on Saturday, also at 6. So that'll go a little bit longer. And then, I'm jumping around all over the place, but should Montreal and Ottawa go to game 5, they'll play that game Sunday. So if all of the semifinals take the maximum time they need, the semifinal round will end on Sunday before the finals. And they haven't, at least that I've been able to find, released the dates for those for the final games yet. But again, that's going to be another best of 5 series. So that'll definitely be super exciting to kind of keep an eye on. I really encourage everyone to tune into those games. They're really easy to watch. You just go on YouTube. And the PWHL is really just growing and expanding like a freaking wildfire. They're only in their 2nd season, and they just announced 2 expansion teams. So like I was saying before, that it's a 6-team league with 4 teams going to the playoffs, but starting next year, it'll be an 8-team league. So it's they're continuing the even number of teams in Canada and the United States. So the current teams on the US side, New York, Boston, and Minnesota, that 4th US team will be Seattle. And then on the Canadian side, the existing teams are Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, and they'll be adding Vancouver as well. So we're adding 2 really, really far West Coast teams. I honestly was pretty surprised that those were the expansion teams now, only because I was thinking about it geographically in the sense that I thought it would have made more sense for them to pick an expansion city because they were looking at so many, pick an expansion city like Detroit or St. Louis on the US side. That's more central just because they only really have those 2 teams really, really far out west. And so you really have to be thinking about logistically the travel that's going to add. It's adding, it's more complicated to travel to 2 teams really, really far in the west because you have to account for the time zones and the travel days and all of that rather than a team in a central time zone. This really just sounds like I freaking love the Midwest because I just keep talking about central time. But if a team that was more centrally located, it would be easier to do all of that travel. But part of the reason that they ended up going with Vancouver and Seattle is because of the performance that they the performance in those cities at the takeover tour. So because the league is still expanding, they did a takeover tour earlier this year where they basically traveled to a bunch of non-PWHL cities in the US and Canada and played games at those arenas to draw more attention to the league, but also like really to test the markets. And that like fully exceeded expectations. And so they have these two new deals with Vancouver and Seattle, and Vancouver is going to play out of the Pacific Coliseum. That's where the Canucks used to play, but they're not there. I don't even know where they play. They're not there anymore. But that can seat more than 16,000 fans, and the PWHL Vancouver team will be the primary tenant. So that's really great for them, because that means they don't have to like worry about like delegating ice time for games and practices and things like that, and they'll actually be able to have their logo on center ice versus a team like Boston. Like Boston practices in like Newton, I want to say. I can't remember what town it is, but it's like the suburbs by Boston, but then their actual game facility is up in Lowell in at the Tsongas Center where University of Massachusetts Lowell plays. It's their arena. So first of all, it's a hike and a frickin' half and the traffic is awful. But when you go to PWHL games, like all of the branding in the entire arena, it's all red and blue for the Lowell Riverhawks, and it doesn't necessarily feel like you're at a Fleet game. I mean, they're doing the best that they can with like the facility they have, and I am a Fleet ride or die forever. But I am really jealous that Vancouver is going to have their logo on center ice. And then Seattle's going to play at Climate Pledge Arena, which is also the home of the Kraken. So they're actually entering into like a pretty fun bestie partnership with the Kraken. They're going to trade at the Kraken Community Iceplex as well. So it'll be a little bit different than the Vancouver deal in the sense that they are not the primary tenant. But given like the way that the NHL schedule works and the fact that the PWHL schedule is actually pretty short, I don't like foresee them having a ton of like scheduling issues that they'll need to worry about, which is awesome. So yeah, those two expansion teams, neither of them they've released colors, but they haven't released mascots or anything yet. They just have the logo with, it's like the circular logo with the city name and then the W, which is identical to the logo for the 6 inaugural teams before they gave them their actual like names and colorways and all that good stuff. So I mean, I just want team names because like you've been planning it, like just release the name. But part of me really does love the like almost nostalgia of them showing like, or of them maintaining those original logos. I just think that's fun. All right, so now that we've kind of gone over a bunch of the PWHL news, we're going to transition really quick to NWSL right before we wrap up. Not too much news per se this week for women's soccer, but I mean, this is a little bit outdated, but because this is my show and I can do what I want, I wanted to give a special shout out to the queen and king of Chicago, Mallory and Dansby Swanson, because they're expecting a baby. And I'm a huge Cubs fan and I'm obsessed with them. And so I'm just excited for that. I can't wait to see them put the baby in like their uniforms and shit. It's going to be adorable. But yeah, I don't know. I was going to talk a little bit about thoughts on Chicago Red Stars changing to Chicago Stars. I don't know. I don't really have thoughts on it. It's kind of just random. Honestly, it's changes like that where I'm like, that's really what we're focusing on, like removing Red Star. We've got bigger fish to fry with changing team names. Like we've got some indigenous mascots out here that like really, really gotta not be. They really need to just not be the mascot. Like it's a whole freaking thing. I'm not gonna get into it, but we've got bigger problems in terms of names. But I mean, speaking of other NWSL names, like thank freaking God they changed the like Boss Nation FC or whatever the hell they first called it. That was god awful. I was still living there when they released that name, and literally everyone in the city was like, the fuck? Like horrible. Like it was just weird. So yeah, I don't know. Glad that isn't an issue anymore, because if I had to watch an NWSL game and had to listen to them say Boss Nation FC, I just I wouldn't have been able to do it. But in terms of games this weekend for the league, there are games Friday and Saturday. On Friday, we have 4 games. So there's 2 at 6:30, Gotham versus San Diego and Louisville versus Seattle. And then at 7, Houston versus Portland and Orlando versus Kansas City. And then Saturday, you've got 3 games, one at 4, which is North Carolina versus Chicago, one at 6:30, which is Washington versus Utah, and then at 9 o'clock, Bay versus Angel City. So kind of like, honestly, if depending on what your priorities are in terms of like teams and sports, you could like really plan your entire weekend with the WNBA games and the NWSL games. And you could really just post up on your couch and just watch women's sports all day, which, depending on how much homework I have, sounds like what I will be doing. And with that, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. This episode is probably a little bit on the longer side than they'll be in the future, but I did want to give you guys kind of just a good background about like what the hell this show is and like why you should listen to it, because you really should, and you should keep coming back. If you like it, feel free to follow us, it's me. Follow me, the show on socials. It's at Sarah Says So ETB on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, as well as anywhere you get your podcasts. The episodes are going to continue to drop on Fridays. It'll be dropping at 11 Central, noon Eastern, and 9 Pacific. Mountain time does not exist in my brain because I don't travel in that time zone frequently. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and we will, or I need to stop saying we, oh my gosh. But yeah, this has been the very first inaugural rendition of Sarah Says So, and I hope you guys keep coming back, and I'm looking forward to sharing more stories of women's sports with you.